kitchen chaos to well-oiled machines. Get ready for newfangled technology and old-school know-how. Stories and a good bit of fun. I'm Simon, and this is Culinary Mechanic. Today I'm joined by Geordy Murphy of Fobesoft. Geordy, welcome to Culinary Mechanic, man.
Thank you very much, Simon. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. I'm super stoked. As we connected and we got the opportunity to put this date down, I started looking at some of your past and I'm super impressed with what you've done. So I think it's going to be a fun conversation.
Cool. Thanks.
And I will tell you that I don't like to do a whole lot of pretense. I want to give you the opportunity. So tell me, how'd you get into this industry?
Well, I grew up here in a place called Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. And after high school, getting ready to go to college, I worked in this French restaurant called 12 North, and I started as a busboy. And it was tableside cooking. So we learned how to do Caesar salad tableside, steak Diane, steak au poivre, cherries Jubilee. Went away to school, and it was it was a high paying job, especially at the time. When I came home that summer, actually, I did the same thing and went back to school, came home the next year, and I went to get this, hopefully the same job back, and the guy had left that I worked for, Cesar Espinosa, and he went to work for Club Corporations of America, which was a private
Oh, wow.
club downtown Jacksonville. So I went downtown to see Cesar, and he said, it was a funny story. He says, well, we can't hire for the summer, but would you move to Hawaii and help them open the Plaza Club in Honolulu, Hawaii? And here I am, getting over my junior year of college, but opportunity, being a surfer in North Florida, I was like, sure.
Yep.
The conversation with my father wasn't the greatest, but so I went to Hawaii and I opened the Plaza Club in 79-80. I got to surf the North Shore through 2 winter swells. And it just so happened I was going to school in Colorado. And I think I had seen, I knew I wasn't going to go any further without a college education with Club Corp. So I went back to Colorado to finish school, Fort Lewis and Durango, Colorado. Happened to be the winter time, snow skiing. And then when I graduated from school, they offered me a job running Canyon Creek Country Club in Dallas, outside of Dallas, Texas. So that's what got me in. And then from there, the private club business wasn't necessarily for me. So I migrated. I built a restaurant for a guy in Aspen, migrated to San Francisco, and I spent 18 years in the Bay Area.
Awesome. Yeah, it's interesting. I've dipped my toe in clubs a couple times over the years, and I love the resources that are usually available.
Yeah.
Right? Like I worked for one place and I said, Chef, I saw something about black salt, and he's like, hold on. And the next 2 days later, he's throwing me a kilo of like volcanic black salt from Hawaii. And I was like, how did you do that? He's like, I got a connection, and I'd say, well, this stuff is probably expensive. He's like, don't worry about it. So I always loved that. But there was also like, I kind of felt like I was at the behest of somebody. And I think as a chef, that was always challenging for me.
Very challenging. You were.
Yeah, you are. Sure.
That's what got it for me. It was the same people every day, and it's difficult politically to navigate. I was too young to navigate that at the time.
Yeah, I think that some of those careers are great for folks who are ready to. I mean, it's a cliche, right? Talk about country clubs sometimes, and it's like the chef or the manager that's ready to like step out of the run and gun kind of hotel or restaurant sort of scene. Clubs offer the opportunity to do what we do at a perhaps a more controlled pace.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
All right, so tell me about San Francisco, because this is one of my favorite. The Bay Area in general is one of my favorite places in the world. I'd love to hear what you got up to there.
Well, it was really neat because it was I moved to San Francisco and lived in the city the whole time I was there in the early 80s. So it was the beginning of the culinary age and the wine the industry and the whole. It was just so much fun being in the restaurant and hospitality culinary business. I went to work for Kimpton, where I took over a restaurant called Coletto's that was
Wow.
annualized at less than probably 2 million, losing a couple hundred grand a year. In a matter of a year, I flipped it around doing 3.5 or so. We're making 10, 15%. 2 years later, we were doing about 6.5 to 7 million, making 24% profit, and
Wow.
absolutely killing it. I had a system at the time, which has now evolved into Fobesoft, that we built a few years ago. And that's the way I would operate. And then from there, Wolfgang Puck was opening his first restaurant outside of Los Angeles. He had two in LA, Chinois and Spago, and he came to San Francisco, and I was the managing partner, director of ops for Post Trio, and I opened that with
Oh, wow.
Wolfgang, and I spent 3 years with Wolf, which was really cool, because that it was Kimpton, great company at the time. Bill Kimpton, Tom Latour ran it, and they were just super guys. And they gave us some freedom, but then to go work with Wolf for a few years, and see the quality in everything. Plus, he's just a super, super nice guy. I left Wolf to do my own. So I opened Geordy's in '94. It was top 10 best new restaurants in the country by Esquire, Food and Wine, Bon
Nice.
Appetit, New York Times Above the Fold. Had opportunity, so I started with a couple guys. We did some Asian noodle restaurants called Long Life Noodle Company. And in '99, we were five hottest concepts in the country. We had six of those throughout the Bay Area. And yeah, that's, to being in San Francisco at that time with, Jeremiah Tower and Alice Waters and Wolfgang and
Yep.
everybody, it was really, really neat to be part of that.
Yeah. Let's see. So you said Post Trio. I worked for a short time in the Bay Area in San Francisco. I worked for Town Hall, right? So
Oh, those are
the
all, I mean,
Rosenthal
good
brothers and Doug
buddies, the
Washington.
Rosenthal's. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
man, those guys were just like getting to work for them for even a short time. I wasn't destined for it, honestly. Like I was looking for an executive chef position, and they had the sous chef position, but you got to make money. So I got
sure.
in with them for a little while, but I was just stunned like instantly at the attention to detail. Like
Right.
working that line was some of the hardest months I've ever had, but I was stunned at how consistent their business was,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
just it was
They
that was a
just, they
well-oiled
just,
machine. It was very
they just
clear.
closed. They just closed after 25, 30 years. I mean,
Yeah,
in fact,
yeah,
John Dern, who was one of the partners there, is still a very, very close friend of mine. He
yeah,
was one of the partners that helped put the Rosenthal brothers in business.
yeah.
Yeah. So great guys. Love those guys.
Totally. I always loved how the brothers complimented themselves. Because you'd have Mitchell who'd just be like he'd be standing over me, like watching me shuck an oyster because I was helping the pantry guy out. And just like just over me from across the line. And then you'd have Steven who'd like walk into the kitchen in his I don't know where he got a chef coat from because it would just appear, but he'd come in his he'd just and he'd like silently stand behind you, behind one of the cooks and just observe, not saying anything. And then, the next day he'd be like, Simon, can you take care of this? I'm like, absolutely. But it was just so
Yeah.
fun to like see how they, even though they were the owners of the restaurant doing all sorts of other things,
Sure.
they
Great guys.
really like they still cared about every little tiny detail. You
Yeah.
know, food at town halls continues to still in my mind is some of them the just the that barbecue shrimp they did. That was
Yeah.
like the thing, right? From Paul Prudhomme's mom.
That's funny.
Awesome. So tell me how all of that, like, how does Fobesoft come around? How does all of that bring
Well,
bring
I
us
mean, what
to
happened was,
Fobesoft?
I'm in the Bay Area. I met my wife. We wanted to raise our kids here in Florida, where I grew up, because it's just a tremendous place. I live less than a half mile from the ocean, and it's just, the cost of living, everything. It's just a great place to live. So I sold my restaurants, back to the Taiwanese partners, the noodle joints, moved to Florida, and I started Cypress Hospitality Group, which is still in existence today. It's a headhunter for the hospitality business. We place chefs, managers throughout the country for everybody from Wolfgang to corporate Burger King. And about 6 or 7 years ago, when I had moved back, friends of mine from the Bay Area were calling and saying, would you look at my P&L for me? I'm going to open a restaurant. Would you help me run some numbers? And I thought, you know what? I've had this idea in this way that I've always operated, and I'm just going to do it. So I was cycling one morning, and I thought, I need to find a developer. So I started making phone calls, and I found a developer who's my partner today, named Raj. He lives here in Jacksonville, and we have a team of developers in India. And my whole support team, we've got 12 on a support team now.
Wow.
But the whole idea was we built, the restaurant business is a rear view mirror business. You operate for a month, and you turn around and you say, did we make money last month? And if you have any issues that are that you've had in the month, they typically compound into the next month. So you're carrying these issues with you into the next month. And I thought, you know what? That's why I say, Fobesoft, we serve P&Ls fresh daily. We give restaurants a full profit and loss statement compared to a budget that runs month to date. Now, when we first built this, it had a lot of entry. You had to enter your food, beer, wine, liquor. You had to enter your front of house, back of the house sales. We build in the salaries behind the platform with the payroll taxes, etc. And then you had to enter what you spent that day. Well, now, the pandemic hits and we lose all our customers. And I basically couldn't afford to keep supporting it. So I found some guys, some angel investors, great partners out of Orlando, Florida, super guys. And it gave us a little bit of money to start using it for technology. And so what we have today is crazy. You're getting a P&L every single day compared to a budget that runs month to date, and you barely have to touch a thing. We import the sales from the point of sale system. We import the front of house and back of the house labor. We have EDI connections with all the major broadliners. So if a Cisco invoice hits the restaurant, it's hitting Fobesoft, and we built a piece of AI that parses everything to the correct cell. So they're not even looking at the invoice saying this goes here, this goes here. It's automatically happening. Then if you get, say, you've got a fish purveyor, you can write on a napkin 10 pounds of ahi at $10 a pound and take a picture of that. It goes to the cloud, it parses to the cell. Our AI only has to read it one time, and we're 97% accurate. So now what happens is you're getting this P&L every day compared to a budget. And then once a week, we can email you a dashboard. So here you are. You're not only waiting, you're not waiting the week or 2 weeks after the month's closed. You're getting it every single day. And each week you're getting a full snapshot of month to date where you are compared to your budget.
Right.
So what it's doing, it's giving restaurateurs the opportunity to make decisions during the month that can affect the bottom line. We use the term manage to the bottom line. And we say, and it's proven, that we can increase your profit 20 to 40%. And that's funny because I was on a big call with 8 or 9 people and with one of these big companies. And this person says, how can you say you can do that? And I was like, okay, everybody be quiet. I got called on the mat, right? But here's what we do. We break it out. So you've got your sales, you've got your cost of goods, you've got your labor, you got your controllables and your non-controllables. And any of us in the industry, if you concentrate on your cost of goods, we know we can find a point.
Totally.
If you concentrate on your labor, we can find a point, can't we?
Totally.
If you
Yeah, I mean,
concentrate
I
on your
think you start
controllables,
with prime costs and you're gonna find a ton, right? If
right,
you
right. But then you get
focus your
your
energy there.
controllables where most people have a supplies category and they dump everything in. Well, we break it out: restaurant supplies, kitchen supplies, to-go supplies, china glass and silver, dish machine, things like that. So you're going to find a point there. And then in your non-controllables, you're going to find a point. So if you're making 10% profit, we just increased it 4 points. You're making 14% profit. That's a 40% increase. I mean,
Yeah,
this is, Simon, I find it interesting that, like, I just saw the new Netflix. Have you seen the Netflix with Evan Funke on it?
I
Evan
haven't.
Funke from, well, Felix, do you know Felix in LA? It's one of the hottest,
Yep.
restaurants down there. His first restaurant, they spent $3.5 million and they went out of business. And somebody asked him, well, what did you learn from that? And he said, I learned I needed to learn the financials.
Yep.
And I was like, I'm sitting there like smacking my wife, going, listen to me.
Yeah.
But we were watching this, and I just saw probably 2 months ago, Jose Andres was interviewed, and they said, what's the most important information you could give a new restaurateur? And his comment was, without a doubt, understand the financials, because it's a business. It's a fun business, creative
Yeah.
business. We love the business. We've all been in it for years, but it is a business. And that's where we come in too, is because we help teach and learn. We turn, one of our clients said, not only have you turned my restaurant around to make more money, you have turned my nephew from a restaurant manager into an operator. And that
There you
was
go.
a pretty cool statement, I thought.
I don't know about you, but I did not get into the restaurant business to spend all my time in a cramped little office. I love being in the kitchen, out on the floor. And if you're nodding your head right now, I want to introduce you to an amazing company called Starfish. Look, I've gotten to know their CEO, Jordan, recently, and what they're building really impresses me. They're using AI to read your P&L, and they're going to email you actionable insights every week so you can lower your costs and increase revenue. Best part is you don't have to spend time digging through your P&Ls, poring over reports in that cramped little office. Starfish is going to do that for you so you can get back to the part of the business that you love. If you're interested, go to their website, use starfish.com. That's USE starfish.com. And tell them Simon sent you. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's a personal pet peeve of mine that every time I see, like, I see a James Beard winners or James Beard semifinalists, or God forbid, somebody who's now got a Michelin star because Michelin is covering the states, right? And um, and that also dates me because I remember a time being in restaurants and being in competitive sort of fine dining restaurants, and there was no Michelin, right? That was just
Right,
Europe. But
right.
now everybody's, ooh, Michelin this, Michelin that. But nothing kills me more than to see uh, that lauded restaurant shut after 18 months, or they go 2 3 years, and maybe they got lucky, and all of a sudden it's like, wait, you're one of the best chefs I've ever seen. That's some of the best food I've ever eaten. The
Right.
service is amazing. The wine knowledge is great, but they don't manage the pennies. They aren't managing, it just
Exactly.
kills me. It hurts my feelings every single time,
Exactly.
because those are the people that, like, we need to shine the light on them. But if you're not handling the basics, right? What I call the basics, right? But it's if you're not handling your dollars and cents,
Well, the thing
you
is,
don't
though,
get
is
to
that
have the fun.
a lot of us, a lot of people in the industry have never been taught that piece. So it's, you get to we had a female chef. She went from culinary school to sous chef to executive chef. Some guys put her in business, and she's fabulous. The very first meeting we had with her, we saved her $37,000. When
Yeah.
we was started going through, I mean, she had an issue. She didn't know what her credit card fees should be. She didn't know how much she should be paying for liability insurance. I mean, these are things that you don't expect the normal person to know. And that's
Right.
where we come in. And that's where I think that, years ago in the Bay Area, one of the, I joke about Fobesoft that we wanted to be the KPMG of restaurants. So,
Okay.
somewhere where when somebody's having issues, they can call us up and we can help solve those issues. All of our support team, they're all ex GMs, director of ops. You get on
Nice.
the phone with them. I mean, they can even talk marketing to people, and we have
Right.
a unlimited. You can call them as many times as you want. We have people that
Right.
call once a week to go over their financials with one of our support team,
That's awesome.
which is great,
That's
which
awesome.
is really cool.
I mean, there's nothing better than feeling confident about learning, like the ability to learn your financials, right? I mean, I personally, I look at chefs and I see so many who they're great. Some of them are amazing with their people and they're amazing with the food and they're putting out this artistic stuff and they really don't understand the they don't understand where they need to be paying attention to the dollars and cents. And
Yep.
so the opportunity to have somebody like yourself or your people um helping them along, it's just the next level you know um
Well, it's pretty neat too that we've got it to the point now that when they sign up, that we can just shoot them these reports. You
right.
almost want to take we've taken 90% of it off their plate, because it is, it's not that if you understand it, a daunting task, but you're talking about, I love what David uh, Chang used to say. He said people in the restaurant business don't fit in anywhere else, and we kind of don't, you know.
No.
So, we've kind of taken it and said, here, this is the information you need, and this is what's going to make you more successful.
Yeah, that's awesome. um what obviously there's a lot of things that can go wrong, but is there anything that is like, aside from just not knowing, is there anything that you're finding that kind of like becomes that big trend of what should restaurant operators look out for, that I think that more than anything, like, is there anything that's just overwhelming to you that you go, I can't believe so many people are missing that?
I wouldn't say that I think that so many people are missing it. I think what happens is there's a lot of knee jerk reaction to stuff. For instance, here's an example: is that, let's say, commodities have gone up over the last couple of years, some pretty drastically. So,
Yeah.
so there's this thing out there that everybody out there is like, I need to do inventory. I need to do inventory. Well, okay, so what are you going to do with it once you do inventory? Right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's another piece to that. But
Oh
if
yeah.
you boil it down, in the way restaurants are today, you're getting deliveries, is almost as often as you want. So
Right.
if your inventory stays constant, your cost of goods is going to be your purchases, right? You got beginning
Yeah.
inventory plus purchases minus ending inventory gives you your cost of goods. Well, if you keep the beginning of it stays constant, you're going to know every day. You can just, use a calculator and a piece of paper and figure out what your cost of goods are. So I think there's things like that. And there's, you know, I think that one of the things that, you look at a lot of the franchisors that sell franchisees, they tell them, okay, you got to paint it, this color. Here's the menu. These are the recipes. Um, Go find a bookkeeper and use QuickBooks. What?
Ow.
I mean,
You're
wait a
you're hurting
minute.
me, Jordy. You're you're stabbing me in the shoulder, man.
It's just like it's and that's one of the other things, and it's not to their fault, but there's so many bookkeepers out there and some accountants that don't know restaurant accounting.
Yeah.
You figuring out, their cost of goods off their total sales and things like that. It's just
Yeah.
it's really, really eye opening when you get into, some of these situations with some of these restaurateurs and we look at their numbers. I mean, we had one the other day and it said a couple months ago, we brought this person on. It said sales, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, cost of goods, Cisco, Cheney Brothers, Ben E. Keith. Like, I mean, that was what their P&L looked like. I mean, it was
Right.
like, oh my gosh. But it just takes a minute to help fix that, and then you
Right.
can totally turn people around. And that's one of
Totally.
the things that we really enjoy doing.
Yeah. So you touched, Geordy, you touched on something that has been a big contention around a group of chefs that I know, and that's the inventory thing. Because everybody out there, not everybody, there's a ton of software out there right now, right? And everybody
Right,
is talking about inventory and doing inventory. And I think that I want to just circle back to this because I think it's a really big thing that I want people to hear loud and clear. And that is doing the inventory is the first step, right? But then understanding like what that means. Wait, do I have, if you're gonna do inventory, you got to take that next step and like troubleshoot it and really look at the big variances. It's like,
right,
well, why did I go from 25 pounds to 500 pounds of Parmesan cheese? Well, you didn't. That's an error. That's actually a typing error.
right,
You went from
right,
25 to 50. And I ran across this one guy, and he's just so adamant. He's done spreadsheets and all these things around run 6 weeks, rolling 6 weeks of your costs, and that's what your food cost is, right? Like, and it is. I think that there are some levels when people are changing their menus a whole lot, then there can be some value in doing those inventories. But I think that I worked with a group recently, and they're 4 restaurants, and they've got a commissary. So there's some moving parts there.
right.
And I was
Commissaries will do that.
shocked when I first got to them, but they don't take inventory, and they roll 4 weeks all the
Right,
time. And so every once in a while they find themselves in a little bit of a pickle, right? And I think that if they had better reporting that was a little faster, a la Fobesoft,
right,
they would benefit from that. But I think that what they found is that they spent so much time chasing down little tiny errors and little tiny glitches in the inventory that it wasn't necessarily the best thing in the world.
right. Well,
So what we did for them, or what I did for them, was we went in and we costed their menu down to really did a good costing, and we understood what it should be, right? That theoretical.
right. You're
And then we could
theoretical.
then we could then we could say, okay, you say you're at 24.6. The theoretical says you should be at 22.9. Let's take the big things that feel off, and we go after them. And so
Right,
I went in and just took one look around and went, you don't have portioning scoops in everything. Like, you don't have a portioning device for everything. And they said, "Oh, okay." And so we literally, like, we played with little measuring cups, little paper
sure.
cups. We played with all to the point where everything on the line had some device, some mechanism that was
Right.
instantaneously able to help them portion. And we dropped their food cost 1.6% in 4 weeks
Yeah.
across 4 restaurants, right?
Wow.
Those
That's
four
quite a
restaurants
savings.
were doing $10 million, and this is a
Yeah.
quick
That,
serve company. $10
yeah.
million. Dollars. You do a quick math. You're happy. You're a happy camper
Right.
right now. You know,
Yeah.
but I think, again, I think it's really important. Like, what is it? What are you doing with that inventory? And I have worked for places where we reconciled all the way down to the last cup of cream sauce,
Right.
right? And
But it
I
takes so much
inventory was
time.
4 hours every Monday morning, and I
Yeah,
started at
exactly.
5. Um,
Well, what we
and
do with the
and
platform is that we do two things. One is from a food cost standpoint, we can break it down into meat, poultry, fish, grocery, dairy, produce. So if
right,
there's an issue, you can kind of okay, now we have an idea where it is. And then the other thing is exactly what you said. You cost out all your plate costs. Once you know what that is, and there's company, like Cisco, they're they have a platform that will do all that costing for the customer, and they'll come
right,
back and tell them. But if you cost out all your plate costs, and then you run a theoretical on how many of each item you sold that month, then you're going to get an indication of how close you are to your real cost of goods. And if it's a point or so, I mean, considering waste, etc., you're doing pretty darn good. Now, if it's 3 or 4 points, you got issues. But once
Right.
some people, as we know, don't cost. They'll look at a plate. They'll say, this is in season, so I'm going to make a dish, with what, like here it'd be maybe pompano. Well, maybe pompano's expensive that month or that this year, but then they're charging the same price as they charged last year. Well, that right there could blow because they didn't cost the dish
There you
out.
go, stabbing me in the shoulder again. Ow. Yeah, I mean, I think the lesson I learned was, and again, I just want people out that are out there listening to this to understand, like, the idea sometimes of costing some of those bigger a menu that's got 25, 30 items. Like, what I learned is, hey, stop, take a deep breath, run the PMEX, and cost the
Right.
top 10 selling items. You've
Yeah.
now just, in most cases, you've now isolated 70% of your sales, and you can
Right.
figure out what's going on right there.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
yeah. I love this conversation. It's one of those ones that, like, people who get it. People who don't are like, wait, what are you talking about?
Right. Right.
Um,
Right.
and I think
Well,
that, go ahead.
I was going to say when we've done it for so many years that I mean I don't want to say that we know, but we kind of know. Yeah, I mean when you're having these conversations, and sometimes for me it's a little difficult because we'll bring you know a group of restaurants on or whatever, and then they're adamant about doing certain things a certain way, and we help. We can adjust our platform's like 90 something percent customizable, but it's like the reason you're coming to me is to get better.
Right.
We can show you how to get better. Now, if we turn around and just do the same thing that you've been doing, you're going to be getting the same results that you've been getting.
Yep.
So let's
Yep.
make a little pivot here and kind of open your eyes and look at it this way. And the thing that really helps to make it work is we're not trying to get the whole chunk out of your cost of goods. I feel bad for some of the food salespeople out there that a restaurant's not doing great and they walk in to get the order and they immediately start getting beat up.
Yep.
But that's one portion. You got your cost of goods. There's still your labor. Your controllables are huge. Talk to your linen guy. I mean, there's who's your chemical guy. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to save money. And that's
Yeah.
what I think but restaurateurs, especially if you're doing okay, but you're not maybe making as much as you should, and you're stressing, and you're in those four walls. Sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. And when you dump
Sure.
everything into a supplies category, you're looking at one big number, and it's just like, what are you going to do? Start going through invoices? No, I mean that would
Right.
take forever. But we do it for them,
Yep.
so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think the insights that come out of that are pretty fascinating. You get fresh eyes on something, and all of a sudden you're like, oh wait,
Oh my gosh,
you know,
we had a lady in Birmingham that was spending like $90,000 a year on advertising, and I asked her why, and she said because she can't say no. Like somebody comes in and sells. So we convinced her to cut a third of it out, and in a 2 or 3 month period of time, sales did not fluctuate one iota. They stayed the
right?
same. We ended up saving her $50,000, and now
Yeah,
people come in and she says no. It's stuff
yeah,
like that.
yeah. I mean, understanding your ROI is pretty
Right.
important for sure. I think that, just one last tip on the inventory thing. I think, I as I came up, I remember going, I want to be more involved in food costs. I was a young sous chef, and I'd say, show me how to manage food costs. And my chef would take me into the walk-in, and we would, like, instead of him teaching me, we were just going through and touching every bin. And one day I was like, why are we doing that? I thought you were going to teach me food costs. He's like, you don't get it. He's like, this is your wax on, wax off moment, man. And I was like, okay, I'm listening. And he's like, if you touch every piece of product, if you as the operator are hands-on, spending 20 minutes a day going through your walk-in, going through your dry storage, understanding what is there, just literally walking through, and maybe you're just fronting things like a grocery store, right? So it all feels clean and neat. At the end of the day, someone says, "Oh, I can't find the arboreal rice." Oh, actually, it's a little bit farther into the dry storage than it usually is because somebody put it away funky and we're not labeled, right? And
Right,
so all of a sudden it's 3 steps down instead of 2 steps down. Oh, thanks, chef. Right? But I think
right.
that was the biggest thing for me is know your product and um,
Good point.
without getting too cranky and old and saying get off my lawn, it's a younger generation is focused so much on the creative side of things
Yes.
that again we're talking about restaurant creatives and people who are operating restaurants who aren't necessarily employing really good tactical um really good tactics to manage their costs, right? Because it isn't, at the end of the day, it's not about the numbers on the spreadsheet. It's about the stuff, right? It's
Right.
about having good organization in your liquor room so that when you need to find it, you can find it. You don't order the extra case of Tito's
Exactly.
vodka because you have four over here, but they're all in different stacks,
Exactly.
right? Um,
Well, that's what
yeah,
that's what I
it's
say is we help restaurateurs get their shit together, and that's what we do.
awesome.
We organize
I love it.
them. That's one of the main things we do.
I love it. I There can't be enough of that for me, it's not sexy. It doesn't, a lot of times people are like, "Oh, but that'll stifle my creativity." And I tell them, I'm like, if you don't manage your business, you don't get to have the fun part.
Right.
Right?
You're not going to have
I
a
think
business for
that's
long.
why I love the fact that you've employed some AI in Fobesoft. I love the fact that you've taken that newest technology that is coming out and employed it so that you can do some approximation-ish stuff, right?
Right.
And get
Sure.
there. Um,
Sure.
but I think that's great stuff.
It is.
I always tell people, I'm like, you got to know the basics of running that business, and then when you go ahead and grab a Fobesoft, that's gonna make you run after you walked, right? But if you're
Well,
not
I mean,
employing good stuff, like it doesn't matter.
we close over 40% of the demos we do, which shows there's a need out there for it. I
Totally.
mean, and even the people that we don't close, I mean, that's an extremely high closure rate for any business. But
Yep.
even every single person that sees what we do sees value in what we do.
Right.
Um, you know, so it's pretty cool, and we're having fun with it.
Awesome. So, one of my new obsessions is the concept of winning your day. So, I've been asking people lately, what's a win in your day?
It's funny you say that. On this screen right here, um, I just had another restaurant sign up. One of my salespeople just signed somebody, and I saw the thing come through. So I mean, that's a win. Is signing a restaurant that wants help. That we're gonna get a budget going for them. We're gonna get them going. A huge win is signed on what is today? Today is Wednesday. On Monday, we signed a group of 5 restaurants up. I
Nice.
mean, that's massive. So, I mean, and that director of ops said, you know what? I just got to rip the band-aid off. I just got to do it. So in him in doing that, now it's almost our responsibility to teach his managers how to manage to the bottom line, because that's what we do, and we take them through the process. So for me, when we sign restaurants up, it's a massive win. It's great.
That's great. You know, Somebody I talked to kind of on a regular basis, he threw out something to me that really like hit me right in the head. And he says, everybody talks about return on investment, but let's talk about COI instead. And I said, Dean, what is COI? And he said, cost of inaction. He said, what is the cost of inaction? What is the cost of staying right where you are? And I think that is, I mean, I've started to employ
I'm
that as
writing
I'm
that one down.
talking to potential clients, right? I mean, we can talk about return on investment all day long, but what is the cost of staying right where you are and not making any changes? Like, what is that doing to you,
That's a good one.
your mental health, your
Right.
business health, all those things. So I think that for me in 2025, I'm starting to talk more about COI than ROI,
The
right?
thing is, though, is that I think that some people don't know the action they should take.
Yep.
Because, and I've been there. I mean, we've all been there. When I owned a restaurant at one point, and I was having issues all over, and I'm standing there by myself in those four walls, and all I had was this. I didn't have anybody to call. I didn't, necessarily have friends in I had friends in the industry, but you're kind of like, you don't want them to know, and I love that COI, cost of inaction.
Yeah.
I'm going to start using that one.
Cool. So
I
the
wrote it
guy
down.
the guy that introduced me to that, he lives in New Orleans. His name is Dean LeBay, and he sells restaurant equipment.
Oh, really?
And
Dean LeBay.
he's Dean LeBay. Look him up online because he's on LinkedIn. And shout out to Dean because this guy is
LeBay
amazing.
or LeVay with a V or a B?
A B,
Dean
Dean
LeBay.
LeBay. Yeah. And when he told me that story, I was like, wow. And definitely, I think he's in the age range of you and I, and he's definitely seen some things.
Yeah, definitely.
Talks
Well,
about being a good old fashioned. What does he say? He's a smile and dial kind of guy. He says he's like the old fashioned salesman that like just
right on.
puts a smile on and dials up the phone. But I think now as he's going into a different phase of his career, he's really about just helping people be successful, right? And so he's a guy who's dipped his toes into certain pieces of technology and really looks out for different things that can help others, you know.
Cool.
That's what I love about the restaurant industry. I think that's what I love about getting to talk to people like yourself is there is so much knowledge out there and we don't always know where to look. I think that's why I started Culinary Mechanic as a podcast is to give people the opportunity to say, "Oh,
Right.
this is something different," right? Or here's a different way to look at it. So, gosh, we covered some great ground there.
There we go.
Geordy, I'm so glad that we got the opportunity to play in the sandbox today. Um,
100%. It was such a pleasure
and
meeting you,
in the
Simon.
show notes, I'm going to make sure that everybody can find you and
Okay.
find Fobesoft.
Right.
So if you need somebody to help you get that daily P&L served fresh, we're going to be able to do that for them. And that's awesome. I really do like that ethos of getting the numbers right in front of somebody so that they can take action today and not in 6 weeks.
Right.
Right. So,
And not
um,
be COI.
not be paying the cost of inaction. Absolutely. So
Awesome.
once again, to all you out there, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. Please find your way to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Leave us a 5-star review. Check it out. Follow and subscribe. I appreciate it. To all y'all, catch you on the flip side.
Awesome. Right on. Thank you, Simon.